Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on youtube.com/NoDQCAW, and as always, NoDQ.com. We are coming off WWE TLC, the final WWE pay-per-view of 2012. Got a lot of questions here, so let's get right down to it. This first one comes from Maddie Don. Was TLC the best pay-per-view of the year? And in your opinion, what was the best match on the card? I'm not sure if I would call it best pay-per-view of the year, but certainly it was the best WWE pay-per-view since Extreme Rules, no question about that. I thought that it was an excellent show from top to bottom. The best match on the card for me was clearly the six-man TLC match. I thought that that was a tremendous match, and John Cena versus Dolph Ziggler was also a really good match. Big Show versus Sheamus was a good match, not a great match, but it did have a cool visual at the end with Big Show bringing out the huge steel chair. One thing I really liked about this pay-per-view is that there were a lot of cool visual moments, like Big Show with the giant steel chair and John Cena hoisting the ladder, pressing it above his shoulders, and Dolph Ziggler was on top of the ladder, and Seth Rollins taking the big bump off the ladder through the table. There were just a lot of memorable moments I think people will look back on years from now. And yeah, I just thought that helped the show a lot. And the crowd was awesome. The crowd was really into pretty much everything. Great crowd in Brooklyn. So I think it was a huge success, no doubt about it. This one comes from Dev0094. Hey Aaron, I have two questions. First is, do you like the Shield's entrance song? Every good faction needs a good theme song. Second, did you expect their match at TLC to go as well as it did? I think it was the match of the night. First of all, regarding their theme song, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I didn't have any issues with it from what I could recall. I thought it was a fine theme song for what it was. As far as how the match went, I do feel that it went about as well as possible. I think a lot of people were worried going into that match that, with Ryback in there and Roman Reigns, these guys are somewhat green, and, well, it's hard to say Ryback's green since he's actually been around for a long time, but, just not all that good in the ring and needs to be carried to a good match. But, they worked around it. Some people thought it would be a big clusterfuck, but it turned out to be a great match, and WWE booked it really well, and, They had one guy laying outside, and the other guys would be in the ring doing the work. Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins basically carried the match. It turned out really well. Went about as well as one could expect. So yeah, definitely the match of the night, and a really good showing for the Shield. Their first match, they got the win, and WWE's future is looking bright going into 2013, I think. Hey Aaron, please answer in video. With AJ turning heel, what's next for John Cena and AJ? Well, I know, going into WrestleMania, John Cena is going to be focused on something other than AJ, whether it's The Rock or whoever he's facing. So I think whatever the storyline is with John Cena and AJ, I expect it to be wrapped up by the Royal Rumble. With AJ going here, we'll have to see what happens if she's aligned with Dolph Ziggler, or, she's the crazy chick, so what's going to happen? Did she just do it randomly just because she was fed up with John Cena and she's moving on to somebody else? Who knows where it's going to go? But certainly it was the best thing, I think, to end TLC, and, you don't want to have Dolph Ziggler lose, and you want to protect John Cena, so you did the big angle AJ turned on him, so I thought it was well done. It was a bit predictable, but, it worked, I think. It told the story. So we'll see where things go, and I think that it's the right time to turn AJ heel. This one comes from Big Papa Zagon. Hey Aaron, if it was completely up to you, what would be your picks for this year's Hall of Fame? Well, if I could make the decision and I could pull the strings, Bruno Sammartino would obviously be the #1 choice because of his accomplishments. It's in New York, Madison Square Garden. I think that Bruno in is a no-brainer. Next up would be Mick Foley. all of his legendary matches in the Garden. And, you know, he went to Madison Square Garden growing up and saw Jimmy Snuka's big jump off the cage. So Mick Foley has all those ties into Madison Square Garden. Those would be my two headliners. And then, you know, I'd love to see somebody get inducted, like a classic WWE superstar, like Ravishing Rick Rude. You know, you know, speaking of legends, you know, Randy Savage. If you know, there's this whole thing with Lanny Poffo saying that the whole family has to be inducted. That was Randy's last wishes. But you know, I think Randy Savage should be inducted on his own, and definitely in New York and Madison Square Garden, Randy Savage is another no-brainer. So yeah, those would be the guys at the top of my list. This one comes from Nexus leader Lucy. It may be a bit far-fetched, but let's travel back in time to 2010. Nexus debuted on Raw. WWE reached out. WWE reached out to you to be in charge of the storyline from there. What would have you planned or done with the storyline if it was in your hands? Well, number one, I wouldn't have fired Daniel Bryan. You know, a few days later, you know, he had all that heat, you know, with the tie and the Nexus. You know, it was one of the most memorable segments in Raw in years at that point. So I would have kept Daniel Bryan and pushed him as one of the leaders of the group. One thing I would have done is continue to have them dominate and continue to make Raw feel unpredictable. You know, the thing that made that initial debut so memorable was that it really felt like the show was out of control. So I would have kept doing segments like that where, you know, it really felt like it wasn't scripted. It was something that wasn't planned. You know, do more stuff like that and just push the guys really hard. I would have had them win at SummerSlam, not lose. You know, they had to keep building momentum, let them get big wins, and then eventually you can beat them. But don't beat them in their first big match. So, yeah, I definitely would have done it a bit differently. This one comes from Dante Hammond. Please answer in video. What are your favorite non-Rumble matches at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view? Mine are the Rock Mankind I Quit match from 1999, John Cena Umaga Last Man Standing match from 2007, and Angle Benoit from 2003. Well, definitely the Rock Mankind match. I was there in Anaheim for the Royal Rumble, and you know, when the Rock and Mankind were fighting up in the stands, and Rock threw him off, and he went into the electrical circuit board. We didn't even see it from where we were sitting. We just saw him get thrown off, and then we saw all these sparks flying. So, you know, at the time, I thought, like, did they kill him or something? You know, I was like 15 at the time, so that was just something that I always remember. One match that you didn't mention here that easily stands out to me was the street fight, Triple H versus Mankind 2000 Royal Rumble, and also on that pay-per-view, you know, that was one of the highest ranking pay-per-views on my list for the top pay-per-views in WWE history. Another match that stood out to me was the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys at that Royal Rumble 2000. Just seeing Jeff Hardy jump off in the stands, do the Swanton Bomb, and that was an excellent match right there as well. This one comes from JJ666. An interesting username. It's JJSIXX66. Hey Aaron, how do you think TNA would turn out if someone like Randy Orton jumped ship? I think TNA would go from a 1.0 rating to a 1.0 rating. I really don't think it matters who is in TNA. They could have Stone Cold Steve Austin. They could have John Cena. Hell, they could have The Rock. If they don't have the ability to market characters properly, it doesn't matter who they have. I quite frankly, I think TNA would screw up anybody that they would bring in. Now, maybe somebody like The Rock would bump up the rating a little bit for a short period, but in the end, I just don't know if TNA could market the character and get the most out of him. I think that's one of the major issues with TNA still is the ability to market your characters. That's the one thing that WWE does great. You know, sometimes their storylines don't make sense, and their booking is done on the fly, and they don't have long-term planning. But one thing WWE always does well is market their characters and make their characters feel like larger-than-life superstars. And that's a problem with TNA. They don't have homegrown talent, and even the stars from WWE a lot of times don't feel larger than life. They you know, TNA manages to make these guys just feel like normal human beings, and that you know, that's when they're not stars, and they don't draw. So TNA really needs to focus on that, and if they do that, you know, they could start building their own stars. You know, they could have a breakout superstar, but you know, TNA's not going to get to the next level by bringing in WWE stars. They need to focus on creating their own talent. Alright, that'll do it for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the latest TLC news and whatever else is going on in WWE heading into the Royal Rumble. Probably not a whole lot between now and the beginning of January, but you know, you never know when there might be some kind of breaking news. So stay tuned to NoDQ.com, and I'll be back after Raw with more NoDQ&A video.